It was a chilly autumn night when 16-year-old Sarah decided to sneak out of her house and explore the woods near her small town. She left her house around 10 p.m., bundled up in a hoodie and jeans. Armed only with her phone's flashlight, Sarah ventured into the forest, unaware that this decision would be her last. The trees stood tall and menacing, their branches reaching out like skeletal arms. As Sarah walked further into the woods, the sounds of crickets and owls filled the air. Her flashlight flickered as she ventured deeper, but she didn't think much of it. The initial thrill of being out alone at night excited her. The cool breeze brushed past her face, and the leaves under her feet crunched with every step. However, as she ventured deeper, the atmosphere began to change. The air grew colder, and a strange silence settled over the forest. No more crickets, no more owls. Just an unsettling stillness. Sarah glanced at her phone. Midnight. She'd been walking for nearly 2 hours, and it suddenly hit her that she had wandered too far from the path. The forest now surrounded her on all sides, dense and impenetrable. The tall trees seemed to close in around her, and the once exciting sense of adventure morphed into unease. Okay, time to head back, she muttered to herself, trying to shake off the creeping anxiety. But when she turned around, every direction looked the same. There was no clear path back. Her heart began to race as she spun around, unsure which way to go. The towering trees with their twisted branches cast long, eerie shadows in her flashlight's beam. She swallowed hard and started walking in what she believed was the right direction. The forest seemed alive now, watching her, judging her every move. Every step she took echoed, as though someone or something was mimicking her from just beyond the range of her light. A snap of a branch broke the silence, and Sarah froze. Her heart pounded in her chest, and her breath quickened. She swung the flashlight in the direction of the noise, but nothing was there, just more trees. "Hello!" she called out, her voice shaky. No answer. Sarah's unease deepened, and her legs felt heavy as she continued to walk. She could feel something watching her, lurking in the shadows, but every time she turned to look, there was nothing. Just the cold wind and the haunting rustle of leaves. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time seemed to blur as panic took hold of her. Then, suddenly she saw it. A small, dim light flickering in the distance. Relief washed over her. Maybe it's a house or someone camping, she thought, her pace quickening as she headed toward the light. As she drew closer, she realized it wasn't a house or a campsite. It was a small, dilapidated cabin, hidden deep within the forest. The light came from a lantern hanging by the door, swaying gently in the breeze. Something about the place felt wrong. Sarah hesitated at the edge of the clearing, her instincts screaming at her to turn back. But she was lost, cold, and scared. Surely whoever lived there could help her. She forced herself to step forward and approach the cabin. The door was slightly ajar, creaking in the wind. "Hello?" she called out softly, peering inside. No answer. She pushed the door open, and the smell hit her first, a rancid, decaying stench that made her gag. The cabin was dark, except for the faint glow of a dying fire in the hearth. Dust and cobwebs clung to every surface, and the air was thick with neglect. "Is anyone here?" Sarah's voice trembled, but there was no response. She took a few hesitant steps inside, her flashlight scanning the room. Old, rotting furniture was strewn about, and strange symbols were scratched into the walls. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up as she realized she wasn't alone. Footsteps creaked on the floorboards behind her. Sarah whipped around, her flashlight illuminating the figure of a man standing in the doorway. He was tall, gaunt, and his face was hidden in shadow, but his eyes, those cold, empty eyes, glinted in the light. He wore tattered clothes, and his skin looked pale, almost gray, as if he hadn't seen the sun in years. "Are you lost?" the man asked, his voice low and raspy. Sarah took a step back, her heart hammering in her chest. Yes, she stammered. "I was hoping you could help me get back." The man smiled, but there was no kindness in it. It was a twisted, cruel smile. "No one leaves these woods," he whispered, stepping closer. Panic surged through her. She turned and bolted for the door, but the man was faster. He grabbed her arm with a vice-like grip, yanking her back into the cabin. She screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the oppressive darkness of the forest. The man slammed the door shut, trapping her inside. "Please let me go," she cried, her voice breaking as tears streamed down her face. The man said nothing. He just smiled, that horrible, twisted smile, and slowly pulled a large, rusty knife from his coat. Sarah's screams echoed through the forest, but no one was there to hear them. The walls of the cabin seemed to close in on her, the symbols on the walls twisting and writhing as if alive. The man's cold eyes never left her as he stepped closer, the knife gleaming in the dim light. With one swift motion, he plunged the knife into her chest. Sarah's body crumpled to the floor, her life draining away as the man stood over her, his smile never fading. The forest was silent once more. The next day, a search party went out to find Sarah. Her parents had called the police when they found her bed empty. They combed through the forest for hours, but no one found the cabin. No one heard her cries for help. All they found was Sarah's phone lying in the dirt, its screen cracked and flickering. The search was called off after a week, and life in the town moved on. But the stories about the forest grew darker. Some say if you walk into the woods at midnight, you can still hear Sarah's screams echoing through the trees. Others claim to have seen a strange man watching from the shadows, waiting for his next victim. But no one ever comes back from the deep forest, and Sarah was never found again.